This is probably the most misunderstood part of programming. Some people think it's about interviews. Some think it's about memorizing tricks. Others think it's just hard and not meant for them. But the truth is, data structures and algorithms is simply about learning how to think before you write code. And once that clicks, DSA stops being scary.
Here's what usually happens. Before you even start DSA, you waste time deciding which language to use. Python, Java, C++, even though DSA was never about a language. Then you finally begin learning DSA. Again. And again. But you always end up at arrays only. Every time, it begins the same way. You watch a DSA video. The pattern is explained. The algorithm makes sense. The solution looks clean. And in that moment, everything clicks. You solve a few problems, mostly arrays. It feels like progress. Then you open LeetCode. Your first problem is two-sum. You try for some time. Nothing clicks. So you search for the solution. You watch a tutorial. Again, everything makes sense. You understand the idea. But then you close the video, open a fresh problem, and you're stuck again. Not because you don't know the concept, but because you don't know how to start thinking on your own. That's when something frustrating happens. You realize you can explain DSA concepts. Arrays, stacks, queues, linked lists, but you can't implement them when it actually matters. So you enter phase 2. You tell yourself, maybe this isn't meant for me. I'll come back to DSA later. You make a plan. 6 months, serious practice, 2 or 3 problems every day. And then reality hits. Humans aren't robots. You miss days. You forget ideas. You end up solving the same types of problems again and again. Not because you're lazy, but because understanding alone doesn't stick without the right kind of practice. Here's the real issue. Most DSA teaching focuses on finished solutions. You're shown the answer. You're told, use this pattern here. And as long as the problem looks familiar, everything feels fine. But the moment the problem changes slightly, the pattern disappears. And you're left staring at the screen, not knowing what to do next. That's not just a practice problem. That's a learning order problem. Understanding concepts is necessary, but it's not enough. DSA is learned by practicing real problems with a clear thinking framework. So in this playlist, we're changing the order completely. We won't start with algorithms. We won't start with patterns. We'll start with how to look at a problem, how to break it down, how to reason step by step, and how to arrive at a solution before anyone names it. Only after the thinking is clear, we'll reveal the formal concept. So when you hear words like binary search, or sliding window, or dynamic programming, they won't feel new. They'll just be labels for ideas you already understand. That's the difference. Let's take a simple problem. You're given a list of numbers, and you're asked to find whether a specific number exists in it. Most people immediately do one thing. They start checking numbers one by one. First element, second element, third element. Eventually, the answer comes, and technically, the solution works. Now imagine the same list, but much larger. Not 10 numbers, not 100, 1 million numbers. The idea is still the same, but the cost is not. So the real question becomes, is checking everything the only way to think about this problem? Or is there a smarter way to approach it? That question, is there a better way to think about this, is what DSA is actually about. Not memorizing answers, not copying patterns, but learning to ask the right questions before writing code. Let's stay with the same problem, finding a number in a list. The first approach checks everything. It doesn't make assumptions. It doesn't use extra information. It just works through the list from start to end. That approach is simple. It's also safe. And most importantly, it's the first solution most people learn. Now consider a small change. What if the list is already ordered? Not randomly arranged, but sorted.
That changes everything. Because now, we don't have to check every single number. We can use that order to our advantage. We can use that information to make the search much faster. So let's see how we can do that. Let's take another example, this time with a sorted list. We're looking for 11 in a sorted list. First approach, start from the beginning. Check 1, not 11. Move next. Check 2. Check 3. Check 4. Check 5. Check 6. Check 7. Check 8. Check 9. Check 10. Check 11. Found it. Notice what happened. We had to walk through almost the whole list. Now the second approach uses the fact that the list is sorted. Start with the middle. Middle is 8. 8 is smaller than 11, so everything on the left is impossible. Now we only search the right half. New middle is 12. 12 is larger than 11, so everything to the right is impossible. Now we're down to a tiny range. Middle is 10. 10 is smaller than 11, so eliminate the left part again. And now the middle is 11. Found it. Same input, same output, but totally different thinking. One method checks everything. The other removes what cannot work. And that difference has nothing to do with syntax, nothing to do with language. It's purely about how you look at the problem. Let's pause here for a second. So, what does that smarter approach actually do differently? Instead of checking every single number, it uses the fact that the list is ordered. It looks at the middle first. If the value is smaller, it ignores everything on the right. If the value is larger, it ignores everything on the left. So, in one step, half the problem disappears. Then it repeats the same idea again and again, until the answer is clear. That's why both approaches give the correct result, but one does far less work to get there. Now that you've seen both ways of thinking, checking everything versus eliminating half the problem at a time, a fair question comes up. If both approaches reach the answer, why should I care which one I use? You care because problems don't stay small. When the list has 10 elements, both approaches finish quickly, so the difference feels invisible. But when the list grows, to thousands, to millions, that difference explodes. The approach that checks everything keeps doing more work as the data grows. The other approach keeps removing large portions of the problem without looking at them. So while one solution slows down steadily, the other barely feels the growth at all. And this is where many programs fail, not because the logic is wrong, but because the thinking behind it doesn't scale. That's why learning DSA matters. Not to solve today's small problems, but to make sure your thinking survives tomorrow's larger ones. Up to now, we haven't talked about formulas. We haven't talked about symbols. We've only talked about how different ways of thinking behave as the problem grows. That idea of asking, what happens to my solution when the input becomes larger, has a formal name. It's called
Time complexity.
time complexity. Time complexity does not measure how fast your laptop is. It does not measure how many seconds your code runs. It measures something more important: how the amount of work your solution does grows with input size. That's why we compared checking everything to eliminating half the problem, because those two approaches grow very differently. One grows steadily as data increases. The other barely grows at all. Different growth, different thinking. That's all time complexity is. No magic, no intimidation, just a way to describe how your thinking scales. In the next video, we'll break this down properly. We'll give names to these growth patterns, and once you see them clearly, you'll start spotting them in every problem you solve. If you've reached this point, you already understand something important. DSA is not about memorizing solutions. It's about learning how to think when the solution is not obvious. And that's a skill you don't build in one video. You build it gradually, problem by problem, idea by idea. That's why this playlist is structured the way it is. Not for speed, not for shortcuts, but for clarity that actually lasts. In the next video, we'll take the idea you just understood, how solutions behave as input grows, and we'll formalize it. We'll talk about time complexity properly.
what it measures, what it does not measure, and how to reason about it without fear or confusion. If you follow this playlist in order and resist the urge to jump ahead, you'll notice something change. When you see a new problem, you won't immediately search for a pattern. You'll pause, think, and know how to begin. That's the goal. I'll see you in the next video.